Hello, welcome to Git and GitHub, a crash course by Pratap. So in this crash course, we will learn about the concept of Git, the working of Git, and why was Git introduced. And also we will learn the basic Git commands. So let's get started. So let's start with what is a Git. So Git is a version control system for tracking changes in computer files. It was created in 2005 by Linus Torvald for development of Linux kernel, and it is a distributed version control because multiple developers work on the local machine, and also we have a repository in a Git server. So it's a distributed, and it helps coordinating work between multiple developers, and it is used to track who made what changes and when, and we can revert back at any time, and it has a local and a remote repository. So let's continue with the concept of Git. So it helps us keep track of code history. It takes snapshot of our files, and we decide when to take the snapshot by making a commit. So basically making a commit means taking a snapshot, and then we can visit any snapshot or commit at any time, and we can stage the file before committing. Let us learn how we can install the Git in our machine. So if you're using Linux, Debian, then you can use sudo apt-get install git. And if you're using Fedora, then you can say sudo yum install git. And if you're using Mac, then using Homebrew, you can say brew install git. And if you're using a Windows machine, then you can follow this link to download the Git in your machine. So let's start with the basic command. So before we start the basic command, let's go ahead and create a new folder. You can say Git tutorial. Okay. And now let me go to the Git tutorial folder. Okay. So currently we don't have anything in this folder. And let's start with the basic commands. So basically the first command we'll be learning is the git init, which will basically initialize a local Git repository. So if I say git init, okay. So if I say git init, then it will initialize a empty Git repository in this particular Git tutorial folder. And if you check here, I don't have anything, but it creates a hidden folder .git. If I go to my .git, and if I check ls, you can see we have certain head, we have config, description, hooks, and all. So we don't have to really bother about this. So let's go back to our Git folder. Okay, so let's continue with our next command. So basically we have git add, which is basically file. It add file or files into the index. So currently, if you can see, we don't have any files or folders in this particular Git tutorial folder. So let's go ahead and create a couple of files. If you want to create a file using a terminal, then you can say touch, and you can give the name of the file or the files. I can say a.txt, b.txt, c.txt. Cool, right? So if I say this, so you can see now we have these three files. You can also see here we have a, b, c, the text files. So before we continue with our git add command, let's learn about this git status command. So basically if I can see git status here, if I say git status, it will basically give me the current status of our working directory. Okay, so the current status of our working directory is we don't have a commits yet, and these three files are not tracked by Git yet. So if you want the Git to track this file, so you can say git add. But when we say git add, if you remember here, we have either file or we can also add files, right? So that means if you want to add a single file, then I can say a.txt, and let me check the status again. And you can see changes to be committed. So the file which I just added here, the color becomes green. That means it is ready to be committed. But these files are not yet tracked by Git, so we cannot commit these files. So if you want to add these multiple files, you can say git add dot. This basically means add all the files in this particular folder. If you want to add a single file, then you can say git add and the name of the file. And if you want to add all the files, then you can say git add and dot, which is basically means everything in this folder. And let's check the status again, and you can see we have all the three files in green, which is basically ready to be committed. So let's continue. So we have the next commit, git commit. So before we continue with the git commit, let's learn about git log, which is basically help us view the commit history. So you can say, if we say git log, basically it says your current branch main does not have any commits yet, which means that we don't create any commit yet. But before that, let's go and create a commit. We can say git commit -m and the message added 3 files. You can see we have the command git commit, and we have this -m, which basically means the message, and we add the message we want to convey in this particular quotation, right? When I run this command, it will create a commit. So it says that it made a commit of this particular ID. Now I can say git log again. So you can see it creates a new commit. So this is basically a hash. So I can identify this as the ID of this particular commit. That means, let's say 10 days from now, I want to come back to this point. That means I can always use this ID or this hash to revert back to this particular commit. So basically you can understand this as a ID of that particular snapshot. And here you can see when was the commit made and who made the commit. So basically this is Pratap Sharma, and what commit did he do? Basically he added 3 files, right? So if I check my status now, you can see we are on the main branch and we don't have anything to commit. So we already committed the changes.